Okay, great. Thanks, Katie. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to PowerPoint Tips and Tricks. You'll see on my screen, I have the sample presentation open that you would have been sent, and that is included in the panel, PowerPoint Tips and Tricks sample. And we're going to be using this particular presentation throughout the day, throughout the hour, looking at a few different things. And you'll see in your handout, I've basically got a list of topics listed there. We're going to be starting off right off the bat with something called modifying the slide master. This is a really important feature to be aware of. I found when I first started using PowerPoint, I didn't even know that this existed. It's a way of being able to control your formatting. So I'll be taking you through some examples of that. And while we're doing that, I'll be giving you some guidelines on choosing backgrounds and text color. From there, we'll be looking at how to divide your presentation into sections. If you have a large presentation, being able to divide it into sections can be somewhat useful in terms of being able to manipulate the information and just to see it more easily. Then we'll spend some time looking at the drawing tools. I've got an example of a couple of things I'm going to be showing you with that, and we'll be covering using some of the different drawing tools that are available. We'll be taking a look at a brand new feature in, I think it came out in Office 365. It's fairly new. It's called Morph, and it's really, there's a lot you can do with that. So I'll give you a couple examples of that one. Then we'll be taking a look at something called SmartArt, and with the SmartArt, we'll be looking specifically at using SmartArt that incorporates the icon feature as well as pictures. Then we'll go from there into looking at some different PowerPoint saving options, specifically looking at how you can save a PowerPoint presentation as a PDF and some of the different options that are available there. And one of the things that becomes important if you're sharing a presentation is how you can embed fonts and how you can embed video. So if you pass on the presentation to someone else, how they'll still see the correct font, and how they'll see any video that you might have incorporated into your presentation. And then finally, something that wasn't actually advertised in the listing on our website, I've added to this if we have time. I'm going to show you how to create a document callout. This is something you've probably seen. It's a technique that's used on TV when they're doing like on the news. There'll be if they're identifying a document, and there'll be like a document callout, meaning that the part of the document zooms out and you can see a portion or a paragraph of the document. It's kind of a neat feature, so I've added that just to give you a chance to see how that works. So that can be quite effective in your presentations as well. So starting right off the bat with modifying the slide master, this is something that you need to be aware of if you want to make changes to your presentation and you want to make sure that the slides are consistent. Because that's one of the things that's really important when you're using PowerPoint is that you don't use a lot of different fonts, you don't use a lot of different color. You want to sort of maintain consistency from slide to slide. Because when you're showing the presentation, if all of a sudden a title is a different format than a title on another slide, it just sort of stands out and it just doesn't look as professional as it would if all the headings are the same. Now you can detract from that on some slides, but for the most part, the majority of your slides should be exactly the same. So first of all, the presentation that I've given you is very boring. It's just was created using the blank slide, like when you go to File and New. What I would have done is I would have just chosen blank presentation. So that's what we've got is just the straight default. And you can see that there's a title slide. This is a presentation on the causes of motor vehicle accidents. You can see here's a title or a bullet slide with a title and a bullet list. And as I go to each one of these, you can see they're all the same. So the title's in the same format. The bullets are all using the same bullets. And then we'll just going to sort of focus on these 7 slides initially. So when you're in you'll see here, the tab that I have active is the Design tab. Instead of, if I decided after I've created the presentation, instead of it being blank, if I want there to be some sort of theme, PowerPoint comes built in with a series of themes. And there's a drop down here I can click, and there I can see the different themes that are available. And this is an example here. I'm going to go to the one when you hover on them, it actually gives you a name for the theme. So I've gone to the one called Circuit, which is the third one in the third row. And when I click on that, you're going to see all of my slides change. So there's things built in to these themes that will make all of your slides the same. Now, within each theme, there is a variant. So if I decided I liked this theme, but maybe I didn't like the background color, I could go over here and there's 4 variants that are available. And the difference with the variants are basically the background color. So as I go through those, I might decide I should like the blue the best. And if I click this drop arrow here, you can see it pops down to colors, fonts, effects, and background style. So I can manipulate that further. Now, one of the things you might find when you use some of these themes is there'll be some parts of the theme that you don't like. And one thing in particular I don't like about this particular one is I don't like this graphic. I like the background. I like the colors that are used. It's just I don't really like this. And as I look at the other slides, you can see I might want to be able to remove that. And you'll notice that if you try and click on it, when you can't even touch it. Like when I click, I get the 2 text boxes, but I can't actually grab this. So how we can make changes to any additional things that are added in these themes is to go to the master. So the master we can find under the View tab, and there's 3 items here in master views. There's the handout master, the notes master, which are the masters for your handouts and your notes. And what we're going to focus on here is the slide master. And when I hover on it, you can see it gives me a further description that says it controls the look of your presentation, including the colors, the fonts, the backgrounds, any effects. There's quite a range of things. And it says you can insert a shape or a logo on the slide master and it will automatically show up on all your slides. So I'm going to now click slide master. And one of the things that is not really clear when you go into the master is on the left-hand side, what you have here are thumbnails for all the different layouts. So if I hover on this first one, you'll see it says it's the title slide layout and it's used by slide 1. So it's only used by the first slide in the presentation. If I go to this next slide and hover on it, you'll see title and content layout, and it's used by slides 2 through 7. This next layout is used by no slides, and as I go and look at these other ones, you can see they're all, none of them are being used by any slides up to now. This one, it says title only, and it's used by slides 8 through 14. And then blank layout, it says it's used by no slides. So these aren't used by any slides. But what is not obvious is I can actually scroll further up, and what I see here at the top is it says Circuit Slide Master, and it says it's used by slides 1 to 14. So there are 14 slides in the presentation. So this one is the one that I can use to affect all of the slides. I've made a mistake in a lot of my presentations where I didn't scroll up and I made changes to this one and that only affected the first slide. So I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to come back out and go back in so you can see that clearer. When you're in the slide master, how you get out is by clicking slide master at the top here, and then over on the right, I'm going to click close master view. So now I'm back at my presentation. So again, when I go to view and choose slide master, it displays for me the title slide layout, but if I notice here, the scroll bar is down a little bit. So if I scroll up, this is the one I actually want to edit. So what I want to show you is I want to show you how I can get rid of this graphic, and I'm also going to make some changes to the font. So I'm going to click on this graphic, and it's kind of hard to see whether I've actually got the graphic selected. So I actually clicked a couple of times here. I'll just click off to show you that again. So when I first click on the graphic, I can see I get a handles just around the corner of each slide. But now if I click again, kind of, let's see here. If I go closer to the edge, how did I clicked before and all of a sudden it showed me, there we go. So I clicked on on this little circle. Now I can see the selection handles are sort of off the slide. So when I now hit delete, you can see the graphic goes away. And if I look at all these other layouts, it's gone. The only one it's not gone from is the title slide. Click on that one. I'll need to do the same thing. So I click, I'm going to hit delete, and now the images are gone. And now I'm going to click back on the slide master at the very top. So I've successfully removed the graphics. And now for the font, if I click on the placeholder for the title, and I'm going to now just click on the Home tab at the top, I can see that the font for the headings is something called TWCENMT. And if I click on the text, it's the same font. Now, I would prefer to not use that particular font. So to change the font, I'm going to click back on the slide master. And now in the background group here, I'm going to go right here where it says fonts. And I'm going to scroll down the list here, and there's a font grouping that says Arial, and it says Arial twice. What that means is it's going to give me Arial for my heading, and it's also going to give me Arial for my bullet points. So all I have to do is click on that. So I didn't have to highlight anything. All I had to do was choose that, and now throughout my document, I'm going to have Arial as the font. Now, for my title, though, I want to make a little bit more of a change. So now I'm going to go to Home. And when I go into the font group where the colors are, I can see the top here. These are the colors that go with this particular theme. So I'm just going to, for something different here, I'm going to go and change it to purple. Okay, and there you can see what that looks like. Now, the other thing I noticed about this is it's made it all capitals. So I can get rid of the capitals. If I go to this arrow here to the right of font, this is the dialog box launcher that will take me to the font group. I can take the all caps off, and then I'm going to choose OK again. And I'm going to click this S button in the font group, which is going to give me a shadow. So when I unselect it, you can see what it's done is it's raised the text slightly, and there's a little bit of a shadow on it. And I'm going to do the same thing down here, only now I'm going to click this outside border because it's now going to select all of this because I want to change all of it to have a shadow. So you can see now it's just a little bit more defined. And then where the bullet list is, I'm going to go up here on the ruler and I'm going to increase the spacing between the bullet and the text. And I'm also going to change the bullet. So the bullet is a circle. I'm going to go up here in the paragraph group to the bullets, and I'm going to choose a check mark instead. And then I'm going to go back up to the bullets, and I'm going to go to bullets and numbering here at the bottom, and I'm going to choose a color. And I'm going to choose that same color that I used for my heading. And now I'm going to click OK. So I'm making the change to the slide master. And now when I leave the master, if I click here on slide master, go back to close on the right here, now what I'm going to see is every single slide is exactly the same. They all have the same bullets. They all have the same format. But now when I get to the slide number 8, and that actually looks okay too. So that's, and again, if I now look at, now that I've looked at those slides, I think, well, maybe I'd like there to be more space in between my bullet points. Maybe I want a little bit more space between the bullet and the text. I can go back to view, back to slide master. Again, I'm going to make sure I scroll up to the top, click the first slide, and then if I go in here, I can increase this space. So I'm going to make quite a bit of space between the bullet and the text. And now to make these would be if I had subpoints, which I don't in this presentation, but in case I was going to, what I could do is I could highlight all the subpoints, and under the Home tab, I'm just going to go in here in the paragraph group, and I'm going to increase the indent. That way it moves it all in. And now if I want a little bit more space following this first bullet point, I'm going to go in here to the paragraph group, And the spacing after, I'm going to increase it to 12. So now you can see I've created a little bit more of a gap there. Again, I'm going to click back here on Slide Master, close the master view, and now when I look at all my slides, you can see the spacing has been increased on any slide that had more than one bullet point. So now you can see I've got a little bit more of a gap there. So the key thing to remember with this is instead of making this, and this is what I did initially before I understood that there was a slide master, I would go to one slide, I would change the font, and then I would go to all the other slides and make the same change, which was not very efficient. And I ran the risk of forgetting to make that same change to one of the slides. So it's really important that, and it saves, as I said, it saves you a lot of time. Now, I'm just going to close this one and I'm not going to save it. And I'm just going to open up the original presentation again. So I'm going to go back to, oops, back to the one that we had open here. Okay, so now I've got the original one open again. Now what I want to show you is how we can incorporate a logo into our presentation. So I'm going to go straight to the Slide Master under View and Slide Master. And one of the files I provided you with is the Savvy logo. So I want to have the logo on every single slide of my presentation. So again, I'm going to scroll up to the top so I can view the Slide Master at the top. And I'm going to go to Insert and to Pictures. And I'm going to choose the Savvy logo. Now it comes in quite large. It automatically goes into the middle. And I'm just going to move it down here, and I have a Picture Tools tab that's at the top, and then under Format, I'm going to go over here to where it says Size, and I'm going to change the size to 3.5 inches. And I'm just going to move it into the corner here. So I could also size by grabbing these corners. It's just, I find, if I know I want a specific size, it's easy to just type it in here. Now, as a result of me bringing it in on the Slide Master on the first slide, if I now go to to Slide Master, and now close Master View, now you will see it's on the first slide and it's on all the other slides. And if I click on it, I can't actually select it. So you're not able to actually make any changes to it on any of the slides. Now, I'm going to go back to the master. Now I might decide that I don't want the logo on the title page to show where it's showing. So when I go to this slide, this is the format for my title page. If I don't want it to show, I can click on Hide Background Graphics. And now it doesn't display on that slide, but it still displays on all the other ones. And then I would have the option to go back into Pictures, and I'm going to choose it again. But this time, I'm going to position it right in here. Move it down a bit. And then from here, I'm going to make sure that I have the first slide selected again. So the Slide Master at the top. So the other thing I might want to decide to do here, because of the colors that we have at Savvy Training, I might want to go with a different color scheme. So if I click up here on colors, I'm going to see that the color scheme that's actually chosen by default is the one called Office. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to choose this one called Red Violet. Now nothing appears to change initially, but now when I go to the Home tab and now go into the font group, you can see that the colors I have available are colors that would actually match the logo. So I'm going to just pick one of them to start with. Now that I've picked one of the colors, let's say I want to make sure that the color I'm using matches the color in the logo exactly. And there's something that's available to you that's referred to as the Eyedropper Tool. And I have mention of this in your handout. And how it works, sorry, I'm sliding off the slide I wanted to be on. is I've got my cursor on the text that I want to format. I'm going to go up to the font color, so just like you normally would. So I had just chosen this color, but now I want to make sure I have the exact color that's in the logo. So I'm going to go down and click on the eyedropper. And I'm going to take my mouse, and you can see my mouse is a little eyedropper icon, and I'm going to point to the color actually on the letters here. And you can see as soon as I point, as soon as I get the tip of the eyedropper in the right spot, you can see it pops up and it tells me the exact color that was used for the lettering. So when I click on it now, I've actually picked up the color, and my text didn't change because I didn't know how to highlight it. So I made a mistake there. Should have highlighted it first. And then again, I'm going to go back to the color. And you'll actually notice because I had now you can see the color is there, but I'll just review that. So if I click the eyedropper, and now I'm going to point to the color, and now when I unselect it, you can see it's changed. Now you'll notice that the font is Calibri for the headings, and it's also Calibri for the body. So I want to make sure that what I'm using again is just Arial, because I find I prefer that font. So I'm going to click back on Slide Master and then into fonts. So at this point, you would be able to, you could choose basically whatever font you wanted to make sure you were using. But again, I'm going to go to Arial. And now you can see it's changed both the title as well as the subpoints. And then I'm going to add a shadow. So I'm going to go back to Home and then click a shadow. Okay, and same as what I showed you before, I'm going to change the bullet point to, I'm going to use check marks again. And then I'm going to increase the space between the bullet and the text. And I'm going to move all of these in using, I'm just going to increase the indent. Now, my background right now is white, which can be quite stark. So what you might want to do is apply a colored background. And I'm going to go back here to the Slide Master tab. So I can get to my background by going here to Background Styles. And I'm going to try a light gray. And if I wanted to do something, if I go here to Format Background, I could actually do a gradient fill, which would give me a gradual. We'll try that. And then I'm just going to select this text here. When you have a colored background, sometimes it's nice to have. I'll just try that. And again, I'm going to do a shadow. I always like to have the shadow because it just gives you a little bit more definition on your text. And then for my check mark, if I go back up to the bullet point, go to bullets and numbering, you're going to see the color option down here at the bottom. And when I click on it, you can see the recent colors are here. So these are the colors that I picked up with the eyedropper. And there I've colored my bullet. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the Slide Master tab at the top, close the master view, and now you can see all my slides are the same. And now I'm going to get to slide 8, which you can see the logo is there, and maybe it detracts too much from everything else that's on the slide. So I have an option for this slide to, when I have the format background up here, it's not giving me I'm going to go up here to, sorry, the option I'm looking for. If I go here to format background, I'm looking, oh, there it is. Sorry, I couldn't see it. There's an option right here that says hide background graphics. So when I'm under format background, I can check the hide background graphics, and that will turn off the graphics for that slide. So I'm going to go to slide 9 and do the same thing. I'm going to take the background graphics off there. And this one doesn't have the graphics on it because it was the one that it's based on the blank slide. If I go to slide 11, you'll see the background is here as well as the graphics. So I'm going to take the background graphic off, and then for the background, I can go over to up here to solid fill. It's still giving me a gray, and so again, for this slide only, I can click the color and I can go to white. So the change when you're in the format background option. So again, that was under design and format background. When you're in this screen, whatever you change will only affect the slide that's displayed unless you click apply to all. And then that would apply the format to all the slides, which is the same thing as going to the master. And I'm just going to double check these other ones. Okay, so I think now I've turned off the logo where I wanted. Now on these slides here, again, if I decide that maybe I don't want the shading there, I could just go to a solid fill and then again, just leave it at white. So these two that are got graphics on them, I'm just going to make them go back to a solid white. Okay, so the key things I want you to keep in mind there with these changes that I've been making is you first of all think about what you want to do for the entire presentation, go to view, go to your slide master, and then make your appropriate change by scrolling up to the top, clicking the first slide and making sure you do whatever you want for the whole thing there, and then potentially look at the different layouts and make changes specifically for those ones. And now I'm just going to make one more change. I've decided I just want this to be a solid fill, and I'm just going to go with a gray. And then I'm going to close the master view. Now, some guidelines that I've given you in your handout. What you want to do when you're looking at the backgrounds is you want to decide sort of where your presentation is going to be displayed. And if you're going with the color, you just make sure that your text is set up in such a way that it's viewable, and giving you a guideline of you shouldn't go below size 11. You want to use at least 22 or 24 point if possible, and not much less than 18. And you want to use fonts that are easy to read, such as Calibri is a good one, Tahoma, Arial is the one that I like, or Helvetica. Arial and Helvetica are very, very similar, and they're easier to read from a longer distance. Okay, so now from here, I'm going to change view so I'm in the slide sorter. So I'm going to go up here to the View tab, and I'm going to go to the slide sorter. So right now I'm in the normal view. When I go to the slide sorter, what it gives me is little thumbnails of my entire presentation. And what I want to do with this is I want to divide it into sections. I want to have the first 7 slides considered one section. Then I want to have these 2 slides as another section. And then finally these last 5 as a third section. So how you set up sections is first of all by clicking at the slide where you want the section to start. So I want the new section to start right here on slide 8. And I'm going to right click on that slide. And when I right click, there's a choice that says add section. So when I choose that, I can see a box comes up that wants me to name the section. I'm just going to call it section 2. And so now what you'll see is it's made the first section be the default section, and then there's the start of section 2. So I'm going to do the same thing now starting here on slide 10. I'm going to right click, go to add section, and I'm going to call it section 3. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just using that now. So there you can see I've got section 3, I got section 2, and then where it says default section, the first section will automatically get called default as soon as you've inserted the section. So I'm just going to right click here, and I'm going to go to rename section, and I'm going to call this section 1. So what you have the ability to do once you've inserted sections is you can actually collapse them. So if I click on this little triangle to the left of section 3, it collapses it. I'm going to click on the triangle beside section 2, and it will collapse. And then finally, I can do the same thing on section 1. You'll notice in brackets it tells you how many slides are in this section. So why you might want to collapse the sections is I'm going to now click on section 3, and I'm going to drag it in front of section 2. So now when I collapse it, you can see now I've moved all those slides in front of the slides for section 2. So it's a way of reorganizing your presentation very simply without having to select a lot of slides. And then again, I can collapse it, and then I can. So I don't have to actually be in this view. I can go back to normal view now, and you can see the section names display here as well. So here I've collapsed each of the sections. So they're still displayed here as well. And then I can just expand the one that maybe I want to work on, and then the other two remain collapsed. So again, it's just a way of viewing your presentation, and it's particularly useful if you have a larger presentation. Now, I'm going to move on now and looking at using drawing tools. And with the drawing tools, what you want to keep in mind is that sometimes if you draw something or if you use a graphic element, it will provide a better picture than just a bunch of text with bullet points. So what I want to just draw your attention to is in this first section. So this first section, we have our title slide, causes of motor vehicle accidents, and then we have our first slide, which lists 5 main causes of accidents: distractions, fatigue, etc. And then the next slide is specifically on distractions. The next one is particular on fatigue. So each one of the other slides then emphasizes each of those causes of accidents, right to the last one. So I've taken 7 slides basically to portray the causes of motor vehicle accidents, whereas I could take all that information and display it on one slide. So on this slide, there's my title, and then each one of these are one of the other slides, except the only thing is I'm missing number 5 because I wanted you to see how I actually created the other points. So what each of these little numbered items are is they're making use of something called a shape. I'm going to go to the Insert tab, which is where all my drawing tools are, and I'm going to go to the Shape tab. And on the Shape tab, I'm going to click on, in the Basic Shapes, I'm going to go in the second row, I'm going to go to the one called Teardrop. And when I click Teardrop, and if I just click and drag, you can see it's forming a shape. And it's not symmetrical necessarily. So I'm actually going to let go of that. And I can go back to Insert, back to Shape, back to, and now the shape is now it's moved up to the recently used shapes. So I'm going to go back and choose the teardrop. This time while I'm drawing, I'm going to hold my Shift key and click and drag, and that's going to make sure that it maintains its proportions. Now I want it to be exactly the same size as the other shape. So I'm going to click on one of these other ones, and I can see, so I clicked, you'll notice that when I first click on it, I get a box around the whole thing. That lets me know that this is a group. If I click again just on the shape, I can see it's 1.13. So I'm going to go back to the shape here, and I'm going to type 1.13 for the height and 1.3 for the width. Sorry, 1.13. There we go. So now I know it's exactly the same size. And now I want the tip of it to be pointed downwards. So I'm going to grab this little handle here. And again, I'm going to hold the Shift key because that's going to constrain my movement. So it's going to go in increments. And now you can see I'm still holding the Shift key. I've got the point right at the bottom. I'm going to let go of my mouse and then let go of the Shift key. And so now I know that this is pointing in the right direction. And then I'm still in the Drawing Tools Format tab. I'm going to go to the Shape Fill, and I'm going to choose a red. Now I'm not worried about the position of it at this point. Now what I want is I want to draw the little circle that's going to go in the middle. So I'm going to go to Insert, Shapes, and now I'm going to choose the oval shape, which I can either pick up here under Recently Used Shapes or down here. And I'm going to hold the Shift key while I'm drawing because I want to make sure I get a perfect circle. Again, I'm not worrying about the color just yet. And I'm not worrying too much about the size, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the size of the circle here, and it's 0.79. And now I want to make sure that this is exactly in the middle. So watch what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click the teardrop shape, and then I'm going to hold my Shift key before I click on the circle. And that way I get both objects selected. And now in the Format tab in the Arrange group, I'm going to go to the Align option. And I'm going to first of all notice at the very bottom that Align to Selected Objects is checked. And that means that it's going to align to the two objects that are selected. So I'm going to first of all choose Align Center. So that means they're horizontally centered. And now I'm going to choose Align Middle. And now you can see it shifts down slightly. So now they're vertically centered as well. And now I'm going to click just on the circle. And I'm going to go to the Shape Fill. And I'm going to choose White for the fill. And I can see that I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see this. There's a slight black background around it. And if you look at the other circles, you can see that it actually looks like they're indented a little bit. So that's achieved by changing the outline to no outline. But then under Shape Effects, I'm going to go to Shadow, and I'm going to choose this one here. So in the inner grouping, I'm going to choose the middle one that says inside top. So that means I've now got a shadow up here at the top. And now with the circle still selected, I'm going to go to the Home tab. And in the font group, I notice that my color is white. I'm going to choose black. And before I even start typing, I'm going to change the font from Arial Body to Arial Black, which is going to give me a little bit heavier lettering. And now I'm going to type a 5. And then I think the size of that, I want it to actually be 28. So I'm going to just highlight the 5 and make it size 28. Okay, and now, so the text isn't actually separate. The text is just part of the circle. So I'm going to use my Shift key again to make sure that they're both selected. And now that I've got that all positioned, I want to now fuse that together as one object. So I'm going to do that by clicking under Drawing Tools Format. In the Arrange group, I'm going to go to Group, and I'm going to choose the Group option. So now if I unselect it, and if I click on it again, it's one object. Okay, and now I'm going to put the text in that goes with this. So I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to go to Text Box. And again, I'm not really worried about whether this is actually in the right spot. I'm just going to click and drag a little box here. And I'm going to start typing the text here. So driving under the influence, not worrying too much about the format yet. So this is just the text that you'll see in your handout. Under the influence of controlled substances. Okay, and then I'm going to just click over here and check the font size. So the font size that we used here was 12. So I'm going to highlight all this and I'm going to make it size 12. And it's got a shadow on it. And now I'm going to select just the top piece there and I'm going to make that 14. And the color red to match the circle. There we go. And then if I want to adjust this, I can just use the handles. I'm just dragging. Zoom back out again here. There we go. Okay, so now what we need is in the background, we need the graphic of the road. And the road is a graphic that I found by going to Insert and Online Pictures. And what I typed here, and again, this is in your handout, I typed the words windy road. And then I pressed enter. And then I made sure that Creative Commons was not checked. And it doesn't always uncheck right away. So I'm actually going to just go over here to the filter. And when I click the filter, I'm going to make sure that I'm only choosing clip art instead of graphics. And then I'm going to go back to the filter again, and I'm going to choose large, because that will give me a graphic that's got a good resolution. Okay, so now I was able to uncheck Creative Commons, and the one that I'm going to use is this third one right here. So I'm going to click on it and click Insert. And it brings the picture in. I'm going to drag it over down here to the bottom left. And then I'm going to grab the handle in the top right corner and I'm going to drag this up. So I've sized it now the size of my slide. It's covering everything up. So now I'm going to go in the Arrange group, and where it says Send Backward, I'm going to click the drop arrow and I'm going to choose Send it Back. So that's going to send it all the way behind all of my other text. And then once I've done that, if I want to adjust things a little bit, I can move. So these are all grouped, so I can move them over. And now I hadn't grouped this yet, so I'm going to select my shape and the text, and I'm going to go to Format and Group. So that's all one piece. And then I can drag that into position. So you just basically move things around a little bit. Now, the text, if I want the text to actually fit better, what I can do is I can adjust the size of this text box so it will naturally wrap. And I'm going to maybe just move this over a touch. I think I like it better over here. Let's see. So it becomes a little bit fiddly. I think that was better over here. Hang on. So you can see this takes a little bit of playing around with it a little bit. Now what's interesting is I don't know why that got separated. There we go. So the other thing is you could always pull it across. So you kind of just have to decide where you want that to be placed. Okay, so again, you can see how I've made use of some of the drawing tools, and I have taken what took 7 slides and I've incorporated it all into one slide. And it's much, I find this is much, a nicer way to actually represent all of that information on one slide instead of having to, it can get quite boring if you're going through lots of text. So this is an effective way to present that information. Okay, we're going to move on now to the morph transition. And with the morph transition, I'm going to go here to slide number 9. And you can see what slide number 9 is a representation of an accident. And essentially, this is an accident that took place in a parking lot. And I want to illustrate the movement of the cars and where the actual collision took place. So I'm going to use the morph transition to represent that. So how you start with the morph is you want to have more than one slide. So I've got my first slide. I want an exact duplicate of this slide. So I'm going to right click on the slide and I'm going to go to duplicate slide. So now I've got 2 that are identical. And on the second slide, I'm going to click on this car and I'm going to move it out of the parking spot. And then I'm going to rotate it by using these rotate handles. And then I'm going to move it out a little bit. So that was the movement that car took. Now where these cars came from is they were under Insert, Online Pictures. And I think what I would have typed here, no, I think it was car from above. Yeah, there you can see there's the cars. And I think I took the Creative Commons off. And you can see there's a range of different cars. So I would have gone through and found the ones that I selected. So I had selected the cars, and then how I created these parking spots is this is actually a table. So that was inserted here under Insert Table, and it was just a 1-column table that was inserted, and then it was a copy. And then these shapes here, those came from the online pictures as well. I searched for a stop sign, and then I searched for a parking sign. So I've just got them already here for you just to save some time in my presentation. So now I'm going to move this car out, rotate it. So that's essentially how the collision took place. That's where the back right side hit the back right of the other car. So if I go back to the slide 9, that shows how it started, and then slide 10 shows how it ended. So, but you can see if I'm on slide 9, and if I actually did a slideshow from here, so if I went to slideshow and chose from current slide, there's what the slide looks like. And now when I click, that's what the other slide looks like. So there's no movement in this slide right now. It's just one to the next. But now what I'm going to do is with slide number 10 selected, I'm going to go to transition and I'm going to simply choose morph. And now when I go back to slide 9 and back to slideshow and from current slide, as soon as I click, you can see it shows the movement. So I didn't have to do any special animation. All I did was morph the slide and it knew how to make them move. So it becomes a really effective way of showing some animation or some movement to your slides. So that's one example. And now for another example, I'm going to show you the next series of slides here. I'm going to click on slide 1. You can see it only has one point on it. And then slide 2 has another one. And you can see that the road is in a different position on each of these slides as I move forward. And then I'm going to go back to slide 1. And if I actually click on the numbered point, so this was grouped together. And if I look under animation, I can see there is no animation applied to this one. If I look at number 2, this isn't actually a group. So if I want to group this easily, I can just click and drag around it. And I'm going to go to format and go to group. I'm going to check slide 13. Okay, so that's grouped. And this one looks like it has, okay, so this one has some animation to it. It's got animation set for float in, and the direction of it is down. And I'm going to go to 14. Same thing, float in, the direction is down. And then slide 15. Move that circle up. It doesn't have it. Okay, so I've got to just fix it on some of these. So slide 1, I'm going to click float in. So I'm under animation, I'm choosing float in, and then under effect options, I'm choosing float down. Okay, and then I'm going to go to slide 12, click on the text there. So again, same thing, animation, float in, and then down. This one already has direction. Same thing with that one, and then finally, okay, so again, float in and then down. So all the bullet points or all of the text and the little teardrop, they're all floating in down. And I'm going to go back to slide 1. And when it's selected, I can see the animation is set for on click. So I'm going to leave that one the way it is. But now on the next slide, I'm going to select the object. And instead of it being set for on click, I'm going to choose with previous. And I'm going to do the same thing now to each of the sides. So this one is already set for with previous. This one is as well. And then the last one. The reason why I have it set for with previous is I don't want to have to click each one. So I want to start on slide 11 and I want to click to initiate the first movement, but then all the other ones I want them to come in with each one. So if I was to view the slide now, if I start on slide 11, if I go to slideshow and choose from current slide, you can see I click, the first point comes in, so it floats in. If I go to the next slide, so as I go to each one, the bullet points or the items are coming in, but the road isn't really doing too much. Like it's changing because it looks different on each one, but watch what's going to happen now. I'm going to click on slide 12, hold the shift key and select 15. So I've selected all 4 of those slides. So I haven't selected the first one, just the other 4. I'm going to go to animation, or sorry, transition and morph. And now starting back on slide 11, I'm going to go to slideshow, choose from current slide. So there's the first one. And so now you can see there's some animation going on. So there's some movement with the text as well as the road. So it's almost like I'm winding through the road. It looks like the road is actually moving. So there's what I've done, spent some time doing is if you actually do a Google search of Morph, and you'll see all kinds of different examples, because it can be quite an effective tool to use. So both of those are explained in detail in your handout. And now I'm going to go to the bottom here. I'm going to go to slide 15, and I'm going to insert. I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to go to New Slide, and I'm going to choose Title and Content. And the title for this slide, I'm going to call it Accident Investigation. And instead of clicking to add text, I'm going to go down to these icons down here in the middle of the slide, and I'm going to go to the third one in the first row. You'll see it says Insert a SmartArt graphic. So I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to choose here is a timeline, and it's a timeline that I want to do with pictures. So I'm going to go, but it's actually where I'll find the timeline is under Process. And under Process, I'm going to go here to Basic Timeline. So actually, sorry, this one, first one is not going to be with pictures. So this is just going to give me an arrow here. And just for sake of time, I'm not going to do all of the text, but I'll just give you an idea how this starts. So the first bit of text that I want is, sorry, I've lost my slide here. Okay, so this is a timeline of an accident. So the first piece I'm going to put in here is the time of the accident and the description. So I'm just going to click right here where it says text. And I'm going to type the time of the accident. So as I start to type, it's actually going to start to shrink as I type. So at 11:10 a.m., the accident occurs. So you can see as I'm typing, everything's shrinking. I'm going to now click the second text, and at 11:15, 911 was called. So you can see I'm stopping and clicking as I go to each one, which is not necessarily efficient when you have a lot of text. So what I could do is I can go over here to the left where this arrow is, and I can click this arrow. And now I'm going to click at the end of the text, and I'm going to press enter, and I can actually type in this panel instead, which might be a little bit more efficient. So 12:15. Okay, so put all the little pieces in, and then if I close that, you can see there is my timeline. And if I want to make any changes to the timeline, I can go up here under Smart Tools. If I go to Design, and I go here to change colors, I'm going to choose this first option that's colorful, and you can see it gives me different circles. And if I view this through slideshow, you can just see it just comes up as a current slide. And I realize I don't want the graphic there, so I want to remove the Savvy Training logo. That's under Design, Format Background. I'm just going to uncheck or check the Hide Background Graphics. And now under Transition, I'm going to select Sorry, I'm just missing. If I select just this image, I'm going to choose to have it fly in, but I'm going to change this so it's 1 by 1. There we go. And then I'm going to change it so it flies in from the left. Okay, so under animation, I've said fly in. Under effect options, I've gone down here to 1 by 1, and then it's going quite quickly. So if I click the animation pane, I can click where it shows the animation right here. If I click this arrow, it'll drop down. I can go to timing, and instead of it being very fast, I'm going to change it to slow. So now as I show it, you can see the arrow comes on, so the timeline starts. Actually, let's just go to from current slide. So there the arrow comes on, and then each of the points. So you can see that's maybe a little bit too slow, so I could experiment with that. But that way, each piece is coming in one at a time. So that's one example of the SmartArt, and I'm just going to quickly show you another one. I'm going to go back to back to Home, New Slide, and I'm going to choose Title and Content again. And this one is going to be using, again, the SmartArt, but now I'm going to go to Picture, and I'm going to look through the list here, and I'm going to choose the one that's called Title Picture Blocks. And the title of this is Practice Area. And I'm just going to do the first one. So the first one is going to be personal injury. And I don't want these little boxes that have come in addition. So I'm just going to click delete those. And my sample that I've given you has actually got 6 slides, not just 3. So I can add the little slide buttons ahead of time. Going up here to SmartArt Tools and Design, I'm going to click Add Shape. And each time I click Add Shape, so you can see there I get my 6. I'm going to go back to Design, Format Background, and turn that background graphic off. Okay, so now I've got I'll just close these panes so that you can see it's all positioned the way I want. If I don't like the colors that are there, as long as I click back on the diagram under Design, I can go here to change colors. I'm going to go with some blues. And then each of these little thumbnails are for online graphics. So I'm going to click right on the online graphic. I'm going to choose online pictures. And I'm actually going to just type in personal injury. Take the Creative Commons off. And I'm just going to go with this first picture. Sometimes the screen stays on for a bit. There we go. And there you go. So I could do the same thing for each of the other ones. So each in the sample that you see there in your handout, I basically searched for family law, I searched for family law, criminal, I just searched for the actual title, and it gave me a list of pictures. Now, in addition to the pictures, you have icons you can use. So I'm just going to go to another slide. And with this one, I chose title and content. I realized I want a blank layout. So when you choose one of the layouts, if you want to change your layout, you can click here on layout, and I'm going to choose blank. I'm going to just hide the graphics. So I've given you an image. I'm going to go to insert picture. And I gave you an image called Gavel and Books. I'm going to just choose that. And so what I want to put down here is another SmartArt. So I'm going to go to Insert, and I can choose SmartArt. So when I haven't chosen a slide that has it as a placeholder, I can insert the SmartArt through here. And the one I'm going to choose, I'm going to go under Picture, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to choose, try that. Actually, no, that's not the one I want. Picture caption list is what I'm looking for. So it will be this one right here. So at the top, the third one from the left. And I only want 3, so I'm going to just click one of the boxes and remove it. And you'll see when I try and hit delete, it's actually not getting rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little arrow to get the list, and you can actually click on it from here. And I'm just going to press backspace, and that gets rid of it. So this is where I'm going to put my text. I'm actually going to just move this down so I can read it. Okay, so that's going to be expert lawyers, legal advice, and finally low cost. So this is very much the same. Oops, very much the same as the one that I just showed you with pictures. The difference is now, and you can see it's a little bit big, so I can resize it just by grabbing the corners. And now when I click on the picture, I'm going to choose from icons instead. And I'm going to put the word law here. So this is just another approach you can take. So you can see it actually gives you, instead of pictures, it's actually giving you icons. Now for advice, I'm going to type, so I'm basically typing conversation, and I'll go with that one. And then finally here, I'm going to go and I'll put in cost. And I don't like those colors. So I'm going to go up here to design, change colors, and if I want to change the colors at this point, I can go up to my design and my colors, and I can pick from another range of colors. And that's not having any effect on the other slides. It's just changing in here. So now that I've chosen another range of colors, when I go in there, if I go to colorful, that way I can get their different colors, and it matches more with what I've got in the picture. So that did not, because I wasn't on the master, that did not change all of my slides. Okay, now I see I've gone a little bit over time. Usually I'm pretty good about keeping, sometimes it's hard when you're planning these to keep your topics, your information within an hour. So I've still got a little bit more to go through. I don't know, Katie, you want me to keep going?
Yeah, that's fine. We have some questions, so I think
That's
what
okay?
we'll do is if you want to finish the tips, then I will send you the questions afterwards in an email, and we'll
Okay,
get back to
perfect. Okay.
everybody who had those.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay, so now from here, I just want to show you how we can save as a PDF. So I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to go to Save As, or sorry, no, I'm going to go here to Export. And under Export, you've got the option to create the PDF. And then you can go here to create PDF. And what comes up initially is just the normal Save As dialog box. And if you leave it at the options that are checked off, so down at the bottom you can see it's checked off for standard publishing. If you leave it at that, that will give you a higher quality. So that's what you want if you're actually going to print it. But if you're just wanting to send it to somebody as an email and you want them just to be able to read it and you're not worried about the high resolution, you can go to minimum size, and that will result in a smaller file, which makes it easier to actually email it. And then you also have the option of going to options, and what you can see here, there's a range of information here. You can specify which pages actually get PDF. So if you don't want it to be the whole thing, it will normally print slides, but you can click in here and you could choose to have handouts or notes. So it would change what actually, so if I chose handouts, you can see by default, it's going to put 6 per page. So it would take, and again, if you're just trying to send this to somebody for review, it gives you the ability to get more information on one page. So you've got a set of options that you can go through here. You can, if you're using the handouts, you can choose to frame the slides. So now when I choose OK, and then if I clicked, so here it says, see, it's going to be called a PDF. So I can just hit publish, and it's going to take this presentation and save it as a PDF. Now, if I was going to send this presentation to somebody and I wanted them to make sure, like I haven't used a font that's odd, like Arial's a pretty standard font, but if I had used some other kind of a font that maybe somebody isn't going to have access to, when you go to actually save your file, you can change the options. So if I go to File Options, and if I go here to Save, right down here at the bottom, there's an embed fonts in the file. I would need to check that. And then again, if I'm giving it to somebody because I want them to be able to edit it, I would probably want to choose this option here to say embed all characters, because that's best for editing by other people. If I'm not expecting them to edit it at all, I might go with this first option because that will give me a smaller file size, but it makes sure that the font becomes part of your document. If you don't do this and you've used some font that is maybe one that you purchased, whoever gets your presentation isn't going to see what it actually looked like. And this is also useful if you're saving a newer version of a PowerPoint that's going to be used on an old version of PowerPoint. I had a situation one time where I did this presentation and it looked fabulous, and then when I didn't embed the fonts, when the person got it, it looked terrible. So they weren't getting the true effect of what I wanted there. So it's important that you think about doing that if you are using something that's not a standard font. Okay, and I'm just going to add another blank slide here. And if I'm going to use video, so I'm actually just going to go quickly here to YouTube. And I'm going to look for PowerPoint tips and tricks. Okay, so I'm going to just pick a random video here. And I'm going to click up here in the bar at the top, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy. That's going to copy the URL for the video. And now I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. And when I go over here to video, there's two ways you can insert video. If I go to online video, you can see here it says enter the URL for the online video. I'm going to right click, I'm going to choose paste, and then I'm going to click insert. So if I'm giving this presentation to somebody else to use, they've got the URL. So as long as they've got an internet connection, they will have the video. And when you insert a video into, you want to watch what playback you're using. So if you go here to playback, right now it says it's going to start in click sequence. If I click there, what you want to do is choose automatic, because then what will happen is during the slideshow, when the slide comes up, the video will automatically start. You won't have to click the arrow. So depending on how you want it, if you didn't want it to start automatically, you could have left it at the option that came up. So this video will be embedded in the presentation. And if I just inserted another blank slide, and I'm not going to insert, I don't have one to insert here, but if I went to video on my PC, it'll actually embed the video. It won't create a link, it will actually embed the video into your presentation. If you wanted it to be linked, just waiting for the dialog box to come up now. There's an option. There we go. So by default, if I went and found a video and if I clicked insert, it would automatically be embedded in my presentation, but I could choose to click here and just choose link to file. And that results in a smaller size file. The only problem is if you're inserting your own video and you're only going to be using your presentation on your computer, then you're okay to just link it, and that way it will be a smaller file. It's just you know that if you gave it to somebody else, then they wouldn't have the video. So if you are transferring it to somebody else, you want to just make sure it stays at insert. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to show you just quickly, because I thought it was kind of a cool feature, is I'm going to insert another blank slide, take the graphic off, and I'm just going to go into where my files are. So the file I gave you called sample brief, I'm just going to open it in, it's a PDF. I'm just going to open it within Adobe Reader. Oops. Actually open. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's the file. It's open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into View. You do this a couple ways. I'm going to go to View. Oh, sorry, Edit. I'm going to choose Take a Snapshot. And I'm going to click and drag to capture the page. Now, I could also use the snipping tool to do this. So I've captured the image, and now I'm going to go back to PowerPoint, and I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to go to Paste. So there's my picture of my, so to make it actually look more like a page, I'm going to go up here to, Picture Tools Format, and I'm going to go to Picture Border. I'm going to put a black border around it, and then I'm going to go to Picture Effects and Shadow, and sorry, I'm going to choose this first one of bottom right. So now I've got you can see there's a little bit of shadow there. It's going to make this a white background to make this more obvious. So there's a shadow around the page. And I'm going to hold my control key and I'm just going to drag it down a bit. So that gives me a duplicate. So this actually makes it look like I got a stack of pages. And now I'm going to copy this first one and I'm going to paste it right beside it. But now I'm going to use my, under format, I'm going to crop, and I'm going to crop this so I just see, whoops, going to make sure I click right on this little black line. I'm just cropping this so I can see only part of the paragraph. Oops. Okay, and then I'm going to take it and move it so it's on top of the page. And then I'm going to grab one of the corners and I'm just going to enlarge it. So essentially what this is going to show is a stack of pages, but then I'm zooming in on a portion of it. And the effect I'm going to put on this one is I'm going to go to Animation. I'm going to choose Float In, and I'm going to choose to float it in from, I'm going to choose Float Down, so it appears to come from the top. Okay, and so now if I did a slideshow and viewed this from the current slide, the stack of documents comes in, and now as soon as I click, there you can see it actually zooms in on the paragraph. So you can experiment with what animation you have on this. The other thing that sometimes I see done with this is under Format. If we go under Corrections, you can choose to make it stand out a little bit with these contrasts. Makes it a little brighter, or you can make it come in as a gray. And then again, you can experiment with the animation depending on which direction you want the paragraph to come from. But it's, again, just an interesting way to sort of emphasize information that you're presenting. So I apologize for taking a little bit longer there. You'll notice that in your handout, I don't give you the steps for creating the document callout, but there is a link to a YouTube video that shows, that outlines all the steps. I found it was easier to watch the video than to have a list of steps for you to do there. So you will see that as a reference in your handout. So if you have any questions at this point, please make sure that they are typed in the questions panel, and Katie will pass those on to me, and I should be able to get back to you by the end of the day with an answer to, if I'm able to answer your questions, I will do so. So thank you for attending today's session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Lori. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.